We've all been there, haven't we? It's 3 in the morning, the house is dead silent, and everyone else is dreaming. But you're staring at the ceiling, and your brain is running a marathon. You're doing that frantic bank account math. If I pay the electric bill on Friday, but the grocery money has to last until Tuesday, and then there's that weird noise the car started making today. It's a heavy, suffocating weight that sits right on your chest. We spend so much of our lives in this survival mode, and it's honestly exhausting. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the anxiety that comes with them. We're told that if we just work harder, or find a better side hustle, or invest in the right coin, the stress will go away. But usually the more we chase it, the more it runs. What we're doing here today is something different. We're going on an adventure to find something rare, true tranquility. I want to give you that peace of mind that seems to vanish the moment you look at your bank balance. And the secret? It's not about finding more hours in the day down here. It's about understanding where the supply is actually coming from, up there. This isn't just fluffy talk to make you feel better for 5 minutes. This is the real brass tacks business of how money and the universe actually work. Think about it. God is the one who created the concept of money, value, and sustenance in the first place. He's the architect of the whole system. So, if you want to understand how to thrive, doesn't it make sense to look at how he sees it? There's this incredible book called Shaar HaBitachon, which translates to The Gate of Trusting in God. It basically lays out the blueprint for financial peace. The very first thing a person gains when they stop white-knuckling their wallet and start trusting the divine is tranquility. Imagine walking through your day without that underlying hum of fear. Most people are walking around in a daze, paralyzed by what-ifs. But when you solidify your trust, you free yourself from the worry trap. Worry is a poison. It causes sickness, it ages us, and it clouds our judgment. We're going to work on eliminating that worry entirely by changing who you think is actually in charge of your paycheck. There's this beautiful analogy about a prisoner in a jail cell. Now, imagine this guy is sitting in his cell and he has no way to cook, no way to work, and no way to provide for himself. But every single day, 3 times a day, a little wooden square in the wall opens up and a tray of food appears. He doesn't see the chef, he doesn't know the delivery guy, and he doesn't know the master of the house. But he sits there with total confidence because he knows his meal is coming through that window. That is exactly how we are supposed to look at our lives. Your job, your business, your clients. Those are just the little window in the wall. They are the delivery method, not the source. When you realize your money is coming from one place and one place only, God, you gain a sense of calm that is unshakable. You stop worrying about whether the window is going to get stuck because you know the master of the house is the one providing the meal. By the way, if you're ready to stop the 3 a.m. bank account math and start living with this kind of peace, make sure to follow the Solomon's Treasury channel. We're going on this adventure every week, and I'd love to have you with us. Here is where we have to be really honest with ourselves. What happens when we stop looking at the source and start looking at the delivery method? The book tells us that if you start believing your money comes from something other than God, like you think your survival depends entirely on your boss's mood or a specific client or the current state of the stock market, God basically says, okay, if you trust those things so much, I'll let those things take care of you. And that sounds okay on paper until you realize that those things aren't powerful enough to sustain a human being. A boss can get fired, a market can crash, a client can go bankrupt. When you move your trust away from the divine, you're stepping out of a protective bubble and exposing yourself to the whims of a very chaotic world. That's when the real anxiety starts, because deep down you know those things are unstable. We all know the story of the golden calf. Moses goes up the mountain, the people get nervous, and they decide to build a statue to worship instead. We look at that and think, how could they be so short-sighted? But we do it every single day. Our golden calf might be our high-yield savings account, our perfect business plan, or our connections in the industry. We think that is what is keeping us safe. When we put our ultimate trust in those things, we are essentially serving a modern idol. We're saying, this statue of my career is what provides for me. And God's response is always the same. If you want this calf to take care of you, let it. You don't want to be in that position. You want to stay within the Divine Providence, where your sustenance isn't tied to the volatility of the world. Imagine watching a puppet show. The puppet is dancing, jumping, and looks like it's in total control. But we know there are strings, right? And we know there's a puppet master behind the curtain. Putting your trust in the market or luck is like trying to have a conversation with the puppet. It's useless. The puppet can't do anything without the master. When we see our finances as coming from outside factors, we're focused on the puppet instead of the one holding the strings. This is a massive mistake because it keeps us in a state of constant reaction. We're happy when the puppet dances and terrified when it stops. But when you look at the master, you realize the strings are in good hands. You stay in that protective bubble of sustenance regardless of how the puppet of the economy is moving today. Have you ever put all your faith in a sure thing, a job, a deal, or an investment, only to have it disappear at the last second? How did that change your perspective on what's actually stable? Let me know in the comments. We love the story of the self-made man, don't we? We love the idea of someone who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and used their sheer intellect and grit to build an empire. But let's pull back the curtain on that for a second. Where did that intellect come from? Who gave you the brain cells that allow you to process complex data? Who gave you the physical energy to work those 16-hour days? This is a major trap where people get into trouble. When you start believing that your success is 100% because of your own ingenuity and your own smarts, you're essentially trying to cut the power cord while keeping the lights on. God is the one who gives you the intellect in the first place. If you rely only on your own strength, you're building your house on a foundation of sand that could shift at any moment. There is a paradoxical thing that happens when we get too arrogant about our own powers. The book says that when a person relies solely on their own physicality or their own mind, God might actually remove his divine intellect from them. Suddenly, that person starts making mistakes. They lose their edge. They get tired. They get foggy. And they start making bad calls. Why? Because God is showing them that those powers were a gift, not a permanent possession. Imagine you're using a high-powered tool that someone lent you, and you start bragging about how fast you're cutting the wood. Eventually, the owner is going to take the tool back, just to remind you who it belongs to. We want to use our gifts, but we have to keep them tempered with the knowledge that we are just the channel, not the source. Have you ever noticed that the world is full of brilliant people who are struggling to make ends meet? And at the same time, there are people who might not be book smart, but everything they touch turns to gold. If wealth was purely about intelligence and hard work, the smartest and hardest working people would always be the richest. But that's not how the world works. Success is a gift. When you acknowledge that your smartness is actually a divine energy flowing through you, you actually become more effective. You aren't carrying the ego-driven stress of having to be right all the time. You become a partner with the source. And that is a much more powerful way to run a business than trying to do it all on your own. Do you think we overvalue hard work and hustle while ignoring the luck or blessing factor? Why do you think it's so hard for us to admit we aren't the ones in total control? Share your thoughts below. There's a common mistake people make. They look at the money they already have and say, I'm safe now. I have enough to last me 20 years, so I don't need to worry about trust. But the truth is, money is the most slippery thing in the world. It can vanish through 1,000 different doors that you can't lock. A sudden lawsuit, a market crash that no one saw coming, a business partnership that turns sour, or even a personal tragedy like a divorce where half your life's work is gone in a day. If your tranquility is built on the fortress of your bank account, you're never actually safe. You're just a prisoner in a golden cage, constantly checking the locks. Real peace comes from knowing that even if the bank account went to zero tomorrow, the source is still there, ready to provide the next meal through the window. Here is a secret the rich and famous don't want you to know. Money does not equal enjoyment. God can let a person keep their wealth, but remove their ability to actually feel happy with it. We've all seen the miserable millionaire, the person who has the mansion, the cars, and the travel, but they're plagued by sickness, anxiety, or family members who only love them for their wallet. Money alone doesn't bring calmness of mind. In fact, for many, it brings more chaos. Without tempering your wealth with trust in God, you might find yourself with everything you ever wanted, but no vessel to hold the joy of it. The money becomes a burden, a weight you have to carry, rather than a tool that serves you. We've all read the stories about people who win $100 million, and 5 years later they're broke, depressed, and alone. It's a classic trope, but it happens for a reason. If you don't have the spiritual foundation, the gate of trust, the money itself will destroy you. It's like putting a 10,000-volt current through a wire designed for 100 volts. The wire just melts. Wealth requires a tempered soul. It requires you to know that the money isn't you. If your identity is tied to your net worth, then when the money fluctuates, you fluctuate. But if your identity is tied to the source, you stay steady, whether you're in a season of a little or a season of a lot. If you had $10 million today, but had to deal with constant anxiety and family drama, would you take it? Or would you rather have just enough and total peace of mind? Let's get a debate going in the comments. Think about how much of our lives we spend performing for other people. We laugh at our boss's terrible jokes. We tolerate clients who are rude or demanding. We stay in toxic relationships because we're afraid of the financial fallout if we leave. Why? Because we believe that those people are our providers. We've made them our gods. But the moment you realize your livelihood comes from the master of the universe, you are suddenly, miraculously free. You don't have to be subservient to anyone. You can be polite, you can be professional, and you can be a great worker, but you don't have to be a slave to their whims. This independence is the ultimate form of wealth. How many times have people gone to jail or ended up in crooked businesses because they felt they had to hang out with criminals or toxic people to make money? They thought, this is the only way to get ahead. If you understand that God is the one providing for you, you don't have to stay in that crooked business. You don't have to keep that toxic client who makes you feel like garbage every time they call. You can say no to bad money because you know good money is coming from a different window. You don't have to compromise your morals or your peace of mind to pay your bills. When you stop flattering the wrong people, the right doors start to open. There is something incredibly attractive about a person who isn't desperate for a deal. When you trust in the source, you walk into a room with a different energy. You aren't there to take something from someone. You're there to provide value, knowing that your reward comes from above. People can sense that. They can smell the lack of desperation on you, and ironically, it makes them want to work with you more. You become a leader, not a follower. You aren't at the mercy of toxic bosses or horrific work environments anymore because you've shifted your employment to the highest level. This is the tranquility of soul that allows you to sleep like a baby, no matter what's happening at the office. Have you ever felt like you were selling your soul just to keep a job or a client? How would it feel to know that your paycheck is guaranteed, regardless of that person's opinion of you? Tell me your story in the comments. You might be looking back at your life right now and saying, look, I've done pretty well for myself, and I haven't really thought about this faith stuff at all. And that's fair. But the ancient wisdom tells us that success without a foundation is like a house built without rebar in the concrete. It looks great on a sunny day. It might even look better than the house next door. But the moment the earthquake of life hits, a health crisis, a market crash, a global shift, that house is going to crumble. Anything not built on the only truth is temporary. We aren't looking for a lucky year or a hot streak. A brie. We're looking for a lifetime of sustained abundance that can be passed down to your children and their children. This isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. You don't just trust once and then forget about it. It's a journey. It's an adventure. Every day, the world is going to try to pull you back into that 3 a.m. bank account math. It's going to try to convince you that you're all alone and that it's all up to you. That's why we're doing this. I'm going to be putting out these videos on a regular weekly basis because we need to remind each other where the source is. We need to stay focused on the master of the house and not just the window in the wall. This is a lifestyle shift that will transform not just your bank account, but your entire soul. I want to invite you to stay on this journey with me. We're going to dive deep into these secrets every single week, exploring the brass tacks of spiritual wealth and tranquility. If you're tired of the stress, the anxiety, and the constant hustle that leads to burnout, then you're in the right place. We're going to unlock the secrets of Solomon's treasury together. And I promise you, the view from the top is much better when you aren't afraid of falling. Thank you so much for going on this adventure with me today. If this message hit home for you, please like this video and subscribe to Solomon's Treasury so you don't miss our next deep dive. Comment below with your biggest aha moment from today. I want to know what part of your life is about to change. And if you know someone who is struggling with financial fear, share this video with them. You might be the reason they finally find their peace. Until next time, stay tranquil, stay independent, and remember, your meal is coming through the window. See you in the next one.